Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And first, I do just want to apologize. This is not how I normally dress. It happens to be laundry day at home, and these are my comfy jeans. Nonetheless, hope you don't mind. This is the JAECOO J7 SHS, otherwise known as Super Hybrid System. It also happens to be a plug-in hybrid, the whole point of SHS, and it is also the second cheapest plug-in hybrid in South Africa. It does cost 689,000 Rand. Yes, that is quite a bit of money still for a car. Prices of cars in South Africa are just exorbitant at the moment. It's just kind of the way it is. Inflation is a thing, unfortunately. But this car is actually very good. I have driven the original JAECOO J5. I really wasn't impressed. The fuel consumption was absolutely atrocious. But this makes up for that quite well. Not only does this have a combined range of up to 1,200 kilometers on a single tank of fuel, it also has 255 kilowatts and 525 Newton meters of torque. It's basically a sleeper. And here's everything you need to know. So I have driven the original JAECOO J7, as I mentioned, and that's powered by a 1.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine that is paired with a 7-speed dual clutch transmission. Now, what I will say is that that car for me didn't drive very well. It wasn't responsive. The calibration for the accelerator was very off, and the fuel consumption was unfortunately not that great. This is completely different. It's a breath of fresh air. I don't quite know how they've done it, but it's pretty good this time. So this does still have the same engine. However, I will show you, if we look underneath the car, and yes, you can actually see it from just plain eyesight, you don't have to go looking too far. They have essentially plugged in a battery, and that changes everything. So just the side profile of the car, of course, it's still the exact same, but if you look down here, you can actually see the battery itself. Now this, interestingly enough, is not only an 18.3 kilowatt hour battery pack. So in layman's terms, you have 90 kilometers of electric driving range just from this battery alone, which is fantastic. It does help for of course, the range of the vehicle, but I'll jump into that later. This is actually a BYD blade battery. Now, I know you have many questions. Why have they put a BYD battery into a JAECOO product underneath the Chery brand? Because BYD right now are actually pretty much the industry leaders at building these lithium-ion batteries. Now, this is not only their blade battery, this battery has been tested so far to the point that it is the safest battery for an electric car on the planet. So the fact that they've gone for BYD blade battery is actually good. Don't look at it as a bad thing. What is the point of reinventing the wheel when you can just buy one that is brilliant? So that's what they've done here. I do have a few questions as to why we can see it, but I think it was just a very simple conversation of let's plug it in. It is very safe in terms of impacts and anything like that. So also, this is kind of more of a city vehicle. You're not going to be going off-road. It isn't four-wheel drive, so I don't think you have to worry about any rocks or anything penetrating the battery itself. Now, of course, as I said, this is a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, PHEV. I know there are so many acronyms to this. It's just kind of the way it is. You kind of have to stay up to date with this. Anyways, this does still have a petrol engine, and that petrol engine does still take 60 liters of fuel. It is unleaded fuel, so 93 or 95 here in South Africa. Now, of course, if you come to this side, this is where you do charge the car. Now, there are two different types of charging options. You get AC, which is alternating current, and DC, direct currents. Now, rule of thumb, DC is always faster. It's exponentially faster, actually. So if I remove the top charging safety cap, we have the AC socket, which is the single. If you remove the bottom, then if you combine the AC and the other slot below, you actually have the DC. It's a fat combined plug. Now, essentially, because this is an 18.3 kilowatt hour battery, what that means is if you find a DC charging station, which is ultimately your fast charging station, this will be very quick to charge. Now, here in South Africa, the fastest I've managed to find is about a 60 kilowatt hour fast charging station. So if I had to go there to charge this car from absolute 0 to 100, it'd take about 20 minutes still, and that's pretty quick. So go to your coffee shop, have a cup of coffee, come back, your car's more or less done. In terms of pricing, it is still cheaper than fuel because at a public charging station here in South Africa, it's about 7 Rand 45 cents, give or take, per kilowatt hour to charge. So it's still cheaper to charge this full than it is to, of course, do the equivalence in terms of filling up on fuel. However, if you are going to charge from home using just AC, you don't need a wall-mounted plug. The manufacturer does give you a home charging kit, which has your conventional 3-pin socket, which you can just plug in directly into a wall-mounted plug. That way what happens is you can pretty much plug the car in and leave it to charge overnight for like 11 or so hours, because that is the way living with a EV is meant to be intended, or plug-in hybrid in this case. You go home, same thing with your cell phone, you plug it into charge overnight, you wake up the next morning, it's full. Now charging from home is much cheaper still than actually charging at a public charging station, because charging from home will cost you about R2.50 give or take per kilowatt hour versus the R7.45 at a public charging station. Now what that ultimately means is that if you go to a public charging station, it's going to cost you about 136 Rand to charge this from 0 to full. You're only going to get 90 kilometers pure electric range. I'll still explain how that system works. But in terms of charging using AC from home, it's going to be 45 Rand. Now, I do just want to give you a quick look at, of course, the petrol engine, just in case you haven't seen it. I don't want you to go and shove in the comments section, Shane, you didn't show us the engine. Well, here you go. This is the 1.5 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder petrol engine. This is in a range of not only Chery-owned brand products, but actually other products as well. I've seen them in JAECOO cars and a few other Chinese brands. Now, what I will say is that this engine pretty much seems to be the industry standard here in South Africa when it comes to a Chinese vehicle. In terms of performance figures, this car produces 105 kilowatts as well as 215 Newton meters of torque on its own. Now then, of course, if you pair this with the electric motor and the battery underneath, you have an additional 150 kilowatts and 310 Newton meters of torque. Now, what that means, and it translates to, is a quite ridiculous 255 kilowatts and 525 Newton meters of torque. All of that going just to the front wheels. Yes, these front wheels. Now, what that means is not only is this car a little bit of a sleeper, it is quite quick actually. They claim it'll do 0 to 100 in 8.8 seconds. I personally think they're being a little bit conservative. I think it's sub 8. But one thing I will say is it's very quick. It does have an enormous amount of torque steer because all the power is only being sent to the front wheels. And I do suspect that you're going to be needing to replace these front tires sooner than later if you're not too careful with that right foot. But just the wheel itself, it looks really nice. I do like it quite a lot. It is kind of differentiating the car. It makes the car look a bit futuristic, a little bit like an EV. What I did figure out though is this. This is kind of, I don't know if this is plastic or aluminium or something, but the actual wheel itself are these silver pieces over here. So this is more or less a little bit of a hubcap situation. I don't think it's a bad thing. I quite like it. It looks great. I like it quite a lot. Now that we got all of the technical performance stuff out of the way, let's jump right to the aesthetics. Now, obviously, this does look like a little bit of a Land Rover. So anyways, what I mean is this car looks great. I do like it quite a lot. We have these really iconic daytime running lights, and I'm gonna say iconic because this is really stand out for the car. The actual headlights themselves are at the bottom here, as you can see. We have this really nice front grille, and the entire car, the silhouette is really good. I like it quite a lot. The car on the inside though is filled and filled with all of the creature comforts, the safety tech, and quite a lot of luxury. I mean, it's probably a few A4 pages of just paging through all of the different features that this car has. Okay guys, so the interior of the J7 plug-in hybrid, it is the exact same, pretty much, to the normal J7. There are a couple of differences, purely being the little buttons at the bottom here. We can now have HEV driving mode or pure EV driving mode, and you can change the driving modes over there. We still have the 14.8-inch portrait style infotainment system. It is incredibly responsive. The resolution is insane. Then we still have a 10-inch driver's display as well. And then just directly above that, I can't really get it on camera, but it does have a heads-up display too. The car is also paired up to a Sony sound system. And all I am going to say is the sound system is good. It seems to be louder when you're listening to the radio as compared to listening to your own music via Apple CarPlay or Android Auto. You do just want that little bit more volume from it. You really want that a little bit more. By the time it's on full, it almost feels like it's on half. So you just want that little bit more. The seats, on the other hand, the seats are great. They do actually have lumbar support. They are electrically adjustable, and they're both heated and ventilated, both the front seats. The rear seats, on the other hand, aren't heated or ventilated, but what I will say is they're still comfortable as hell. And you do have a center armrest with cup holders as usual. Over here, as you can see, speaking of cup holders, is my travel mug. And this is just where I've put the key, because of course you can actually charge the key down here in one of the slots. Just above that, we do have a wireless charger on the left-hand side, which does have a vent to cool your phone down while it charges so it doesn't overheat. On the right-hand side just happens to be a place to put another phone. If you come over here, we have our center console, which is actually quite deep, and you can put quite a lot in here. I mean, found an Archie for crying out loud. Wallets, all the rest. So you can put quite a lot in here. It does also have an aircon vent, interestingly enough, which does also connect to the central aircon system. So if you have the cool air going, whatever you put in here is going to be nice and chilly. So maybe put a couple of energy drinks or whatever the case is if you're going on a nice long drive, or some chocolate if you don't want it to melt while you're driving. That's a very good idea. So yeah, this is pretty much the same as it is on the previous one. We do have a mirror that of course is electric in the sense that it will dim when it's nighttime and there are headlights blaring at you. What is interesting is that this mirror has been updated because the mirror on the J7, as well as the omoda C5, actually, they give you vertigo. I don't know how. So if I look at this, it looks the exact same almost, but without the vertigo effect. I don't know what they've done, but they have improved it. What I will say is that the mirror, you can see through to, of course, the road. This is a large car, so you can actually see the rear passengers quite well if you are going to be using this, just to check on your kids. Of course, we have a driver's vanity mirror and a very nice spot to put your charging card, so that can just go over there and stay there forever so we don't lose it. Now, as I hop into the rear of the J7, first things first, these seats are very comfortable. As well as in terms of legroom, there's quite a lot of it. This seat, the driver's seat, interestingly enough, right now it's actually not in my seating position. I'm 5'7", so I do like quite a nice up-close racing driver seating position. And this is in its comfort position. Now, what that means is that when you get in the car, you can kind of fall into the car comfortably, and then once you have your foot on the brake and your seatbelt on, will the car kind of bring the steering wheel and seat closer to one another so that you can then get into your proper driving position. So this right now isn't even in my actual driving position, and this is the amount of legroom I have. In terms of headroom, there's quite a lot. What I will say is we also have quite a nice amount of light coming in through the panoramic roof. Not only is it panoramic, it's actually a sunroof as well. About half of it opens up, so it's quite a lot. Then in terms of practicality, charging devices. Over here where the aircon vent is, we have a USB male charging port as well as a USB-C charging port. So you might be fighting over USB-C a little bit. I don't know why there's a USB male. Suppose if you have a different kind of phone, maybe that could work. In the center, as I mentioned, we have our central armrest with cup holders. Once again, pretty useful. One thing I will say is pretty weird is the fact that the window buttons are just kind of like enormous. They're definitely something to get used to, but in terms of the material on the door, yeah, there's a little bit of plastic here and there, but it's actually soft touch material pretty much the whole way around. They've done a very good job. In terms of storage, we have a couple of storage spots, both behind the passenger and driver seats. A couple of slots to even put your cell phone, which is cool. And then, of course, we have cup holders in the door as well. So in terms of the rear design, as I said, it's purely a small update. We do have the central light bar that goes the whole way across. Now we have a really shiny PHEV battery with a little bit of a lightning bolt that looks really cool. A slight plastic diffuser, and then in terms of the boot capacity, well, you only sacrifice about this much. And I say that because the boot or trunk, depending where you're from, is about this much smaller. So on the normal J7, it's about 582 liters of space. Here, it's only 412. That's still not actually that bad. It's pretty good. We have, of course, a little bit of a parcel shelf. It's not really to put anything on. It's just to hide all of your belongings from prying eyes. We have a couple of grocery bag hooks in the corner. And what's really smart, actually, whoever thought of this deserves a raise. We have a light over here to shine on your belongings, of course, when you're getting things at night. And there's a light right above me. Whoever thought of that one, give them a raise, because people need to think of that. Then, of course, if we lift this up. Now, this is the primary reason why this boot is smaller. It's to accommodate, of course, for the electric motor and the battery and everything like that. So if we lift up here, of course, there isn't too much here, but we do have a few small tools, a tire repair kit, of course your tow hitch. Then we have the AC cable itself. Now, of course, you do get an AC cable with the car, because if you do go to a public charging station and the DC charger is taken, you can still actually plug in to an AC point. Yes, it will take longer, but it's just there for you, obviously, to use. if we put that away, now if we lift this up, you'll get the piece de resistance. So if we lift this up, it's a little bit heavy. We can actually see a little bit of the electronics and what is going on. I'm going to show you now. Now, of course, if we lift this up, here you can see a little bit of what's going on. You can't see too much. We have an electrical component over here, and if you do know anything about electric cars, all these orange cables are very important and they have quite a bit of a high voltage. So don't mess with them, safety first. Over there, that looks like our normal car battery, of course, which will be connected to what I'm assuming is the starter motor, but I do know that the conversation of starter motors with electric cars and plug-in hybrids is a very different conversation. It's a very different setup. But this is essentially why you have over 100 liters less of boot capacity. So driving impressions, what I will say is it's pretty cool. It's very nippy, although I do think nippy probably isn't even the right word to substantiate the amount of power this thing actually has. 255 kilowatts and 525 newton meters just to the front wheels. Now, I'm not quite sure if JAECOO thought this entirely through. Reason being, when you put your foot down, even in eco mode, never mind normal or sport, there is quite a bit of torque steer. Now, I do hope normal motorists do understand what that is and how to handle it, because it can really catch you off guard. However, if you put it into normal or sport mode and then put your foot down, you do get a bit of a surprise. You really do. You do actually have to be a fair bit awake when you do put your foot down. I mean, like really floor it, but still, like so. For example, right now I'm driving in eco mode. I'm navigating through traffic. I put my foot down and she still very much goes very quickly. And at the end of the day, that is one of the pros of having the plug-in hybrid system. You do have access to immediate torque and immediate power thanks to the electric motor. Now, other than that, just like right now, I'm sitting in traffic. It's about 5:45 in the evening and I'm extremely comfortable. I have the aircon going. You can't even hear it. I can have the heated seats on. But in terms of the car's handling, look, that's where I will say you can't really just take a car, add a few 100 kilograms to it and expect everything to be hunky-dory. When you do put your foot down and when you do turn and obviously go into a few corners, especially if you accelerate into a corner, you do feel the car is a bit top heavy. It's a little bit unsettled. I wouldn't say it's unhappy. It's just a bit unnerving. You do have to be, once again, a bit wide awake to actually manage what the car will or will not do. At the end of the day, this car was not designed for this amount of power. And another thing, if they are going to be giving a car that amount of power, make it all-wheel drive. Do us a favor, make it all-wheel drive, because that just makes that a little bit safer for the general motorist and everyone else on the road as well. For example, the Volvo EX30 is a full electric vehicle, and that is all-wheel drive. Yes, there is a rear-wheel drive mode. However, it is all-wheel drive. It is just better. It's better for traction. It's better for just normal stability. And also with that, I do understand that the handling will be better because most of the weight of the car sits at the bottom of the car. Here, it's kind of everywhere. And we have weights over there. There's weight in the middle. There's weight underneath. There's weight at the back. They haven't necessarily designed this to be a plug-in hybrid. This was designed to be an ICE vehicle, and they've made it a plug-in hybrid. That's why you can physically see the battery underneath, because no other, of course, vehicle that I've seen, whether it's an EV or not, can you see the battery. So I'd love to see other plug-in hybrids and actually see if you are able just to see a battery kind of plugged in underneath, if that makes sense. Look, I'm not going to say that that might be a safety issue. I don't know. I don't think it is, primarily speaking. As I said, that is the BYD Blade battery. And I am very well aware that the BYD Blade battery is so far, by far, the safest battery in the automotive markets in terms of electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids. So there hasn't been a need for JAECOO or Chery, because JAECOO falls underneath the Chery umbrella, to kind of design and develop their own battery when there is one ready. That's very good. It's even better than Tesla's. Why reinvent the wheel? Just buy the wheel. But one thing I will say, and I will show it to you, is
normal mode,
performance.
Sport mode.
JAECOO claimed this car will do 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 8.8 seconds. I'm pretty sure they're being fairly conservative. I expect sub 8 seconds. So even about 7.8, fair, 8.8, maybe, but I do think it's a traction issue because the front wheels do very much break traction a lot. But now you'll see what I mean when I talk about the torque steer. Yes, the car will get ahead of all the other cars fairly quickly, but you might see me trying to correct things a little bit. 3, 2, 1, go. See, a little bit of wheel spin and a little bit twitchy because all the power is at the front end at the end of the day. But yeah, I suppose that's the beauty of having 255 kilowatts and 525 Newton meters of torque. You can just get ahead of everyone. This car drives like an EV. That is one thing I will say. They have nailed that recipe. This doesn't feel like an ICE vehicle anymore. This feels like 100% an electric car, even though it's a plug-in hybrid. So overall, what do I think? I actually like this. I think it's very awesome. I do think this is going to be very easy to live with. What I will say is I wish they made this either four-wheel drive to make it safer, just in terms of handling and torque, because there's a lot of torque and I don't think a normal motorist understands what 500 Newton meters can do, especially if it's just to one set of wheels, especially the front wheels. What I would also perhaps recommend is if they actually have a system where you need to unlock the full 525 Newton meters of torque. I think that might be wise. Otherwise, give them access to 300. 300 is plentiful. 525 is a ton. So I would probably recommend that. But would I recommend this car? 100%. This is really cool. I do like it quite a lot. It does answer a lot of questions for us in South Africa, especially the hybrid system. Now, what I will say is, although this is a plug-in hybrid, you very rarely actually have to plug it in, due to the fact that JAECOO's regenerative braking system is so advanced and so good that I've barely found myself needing to plug it in. I plugged it in once purely to test the charging system. Other than that, you don't have to plug it in. It very much sits at about 70, 75 kilometers of range every day on average. You can choose to drive it in pure electric mode simply by the push of a button. Although what I do find is it does hop out of this mode every now and again. Just when I find, you put your foot down a little bit too much, the petrol engine kicks in and it just transitions over seamlessly by itself. Would I recommend it? Definitely look at it. Do take it for a test drive though. I'll always vouch for a test drive. Nothing speaks more than driving the car yourself. But guys, for 689,000 Rand, you're getting a full house full of luxury. You're getting a ton of safety systems. You're getting a plug-in hybrid vehicle that is going to save you a lot of fuel and a lot of money at the end of the day. And this is very easy to live with. As I mentioned, you can charge at home, charge at a charging station, or it can just charge itself. And I find that works pretty well too. So what I do find is that fuel consumption, look, I do know a few guys in the city, you can average between 2 and 3 liters per 100 kilometers if you utilize the electric system quite a lot. But in terms of highway driving, of course, the petrol engine will kick in and you can expect anywhere between, I think, about 5 and 6.5 liters per 100 kilometers. But at the end of the day, guys, this is a great car. So I do just want to say, if you did get this far, thank you very much for watching. I do really appreciate the support. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. Stay tuned for the next video. Share this video with a friend. Until next time, guys, keep safe, drive safe, and I'll see you soon.